My parents chose my sister's birthday over the funeral of my husband and 2 children. The call lasted 40 seconds. I told my mom, Nathan and the kids were killed by a drunk driver who ran a red light at 80 miles per hour. She went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. I heard my dad ask something in the background. Then she said, "Honey, I'm so sorry, but today is Lindsay's birthday. We already rented the venue for tonight." You know how she gets when plans change. I stared at the hospital wall, at the children's drawings Scarlet's teacher had brought, at Dylan's left Dinosaur sitting on the chair. "The funeral is Thursday at 2. I said, "Well, that's the thing. Lindsay's actual birthday dinner is Thursday. We've had the reservation for months. Can't you do the service on Friday? Or maybe next week when things calm down?" I hung up without answering. Nathan's family arrived within hours. His mom held me while I cried. His dad handled the police reports and the morgue paperwork. My best friend Laura took a week off work and slept on my couch. My parents sent flowers, a massive arrangement with a card that said with deepest sympathy, "We love you. So sorry we can't be there." I had them delivered to a nursing home on my way out of the cemetery. The funeral was packed. Nathan's co-workers came. Neighbors I'd only waved to showed up. Scarlet's entire 2nd grade class attended in their Sunday clothes, holding handmade cards. Dylan's daycare closed early, so the staff had come. 17 members of my family sent their regrets. They were all at Lindsay's birthday dinner, at some trendy restaurant downtown. I know because Lindsay posted 47 photos on Instagram that night. One showed my mother holding a champagne glass, smiling. I blocked all of them, every single one. 6 months passed in a blur. Therapy twice a week. Selling the house because I couldn't walk past the kids' rooms anymore. Starting over in a small apartment across town. My family kept trying to reach out, through friends and distant relatives. "Your mom is really hurt that you won't talk to her. Lindsay feels terrible about the timing." They want to explain. I changed my number. Then my lawyer called. The drunk driver's insurance company wanted to sign. They were terrified of going to trial, because the driver had 2 prior DUIs. And the trucking company had falsified his logs. 7 figures, my lawyer said. Maybe 8, depending on negotiation. "Take it," I said. "But I have conditions." 3 weeks later, my mom called from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. "Why did you list us as? Why did you list us as estranged persons on the legal documents?" My mother's voice wasn't filled with the grief of losing her grandchildren. It was sharp, trembling with the specific anxiety of a socialite who had just realized her reputation was bleeding out. I held the phone tight, my knuckles white. "Because you are. We are family," she shrieked, the facade cracking. "Do you know what this looks like?" The insurance adjuster called the house to verify our relationship status. He asked if there was a history of abuse. He asked why the grandmother wasn't a beneficiary in the event of your incapacitation. "And what did you tell him?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm. "I told him you were hysterical with grief, that you weren't thinking straight." She paused, taking a breath, and her tone shifted into that sickly sweet register she reserved for asking favors. "He mentioned the settlement, honey. He mentioned the amount. $12 million? Is that true?" There it was. The corpse hadn't even cooled in the ground before the vultures caught the scent. "It's true," I said. "And part of the settlement condition I signed requires the distribution of funds to be protected. I designated myself as the sole beneficiary, and I listed you, Dad, and Lindsay as estranged, non-contact. It means you have no legal claim to the estate. It also means if something happens to me, the money goes to a dog shelter before it touches your bank accounts." "You can't do this," she hissed. "Lindsay is having a baby. Your sister is pregnant. She needs support. This money. It's blood money, yes, but it could help the family heal. It's what Nathan would have wanted." I laughed. It was a dry, ragged sound that scraped my throat. "Nathan would have wanted you at his funeral. But you were eating calamari." "It was sea bass," she snapped, then realized her mistake. I hung up. I didn't block the number this time. Blocking them was a defensive move. I was done playing defense. I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by boxes I hadn't unpacked, and looked at the check sitting on my coffee table. $12 million. It couldn't buy Nathan back. It couldn't buy Scarlet's laugh or Dylan's obsession with dinosaurs. But as I looked at the check, I realized it could buy something else. It could buy the truth. I didn't buy a mansion. I didn't buy a sports car. I stayed in my apartment for another 2 months. I hired a shark of a PR firm and a ruthless estate lawyer. I established the Scarlet and Dylan Project, a nonprofit dedicated to legal advocacy for victims of vehicular homicide. The first thing the foundation did was purchase a billboard. Not just any billboard. I bought the one directly across the street from my father's dental practice. It was simple. A black background. White text. In loving memory of Nathan, Scarlet 7, and Dylan 4. Killed by a drunk driver. And in the bottom corner, small but legible. Grief is quiet. Neglect is loud. It was subtle enough that strangers thought it was just a sad tribute. But my father? He saw it every morning when he parked his Mercedes. He knew what neglect is loud meant. My phone blew up. Dad, take it down. Now. Dad. Patients are asking questions. Dad. You are an ungrateful child. I didn't respond. I was busy planning the gala. If I had learned anything from my mother, it was that appearances were everything. If you wanted to destroy a narcissist, you didn't fight them in the alley. You fought them on the stage. I announced the inaugural Scarlet and Dylan Charity Gala. It was to be held at the Obsidian Hall, the most exclusive venue in the city. Tickets were $500 a plate, with proceeds going to the foundation. I sent invites to the mayor, the city council, Nathan's old firm, and the local press. And then, I sent a special, gold-embossed invitation to my parents and Lindsay. Inside their envelope, I included a handwritten note. I'm ready to talk. The settlement is settled. I want to discuss the family trust. Please come. VIP Table 1. It was the bait. They smelled money. They smelled a public reconciliation that would salvage their reputation. 2 weeks before the gala, Lindsay showed up at my apartment door. She looked different. Tired. Her perfect life wasn't holding up well. Her husband, Chad, was a struggling real estate agent who liked to gamble, and the Instagram influencer lifestyle didn't pay the mortgage. Can I come in? She asked, clutching her baby bump. She was showing now. I opened the door and stepped aside. She walked in, wrinkling her nose at my modest furniture. So, Mom says you're finally being reasonable. I'm being realistic, I said, pouring myself water. I didn't offer her any. Look, Lindsay sighed, sitting on the edge of the couch. I know you're mad about the birthday dinner, but you have to understand, I had non-refundable deposits. And honestly, it was so traumatic. I didn't think I could handle a funeral. I'm an empath, you know? I absorb negative energy. You absorb energy. My children absorbed an impact at 80 miles per hour. She flinched. Stop being so morbid. We want to move past this. Mom and Dad are really excited about the gala. They bought new outfits. It's going to be great for Dad's practice to be seen supporting such a sad cause. Is that why you're here? For Dad's practice? She looked down, picking at her nails. Chad lost big on a development deal. We're drowning, sis. Mom said you put $12 million into the foundation. You can't possibly spend all that on. What? Lawyers? We're family. This baby is your nephew. Don't you want to help him? I looked at her stomach. I felt a pang of jealousy so sharp it almost doubled me over. I would never carry another child. I would never hold Dylan again. Come to the gala, I said softly. I'm making a special announcement regarding the family finances. Lindsay's eyes lit up. Really? You're going to share it? I'm going to give everyone exactly what they deserve. She hugged me. It felt like being squeezed by a snake. I knew you'd come around. Oh, can I bring Chad? And Mom wants to know if she can make a small speech? You know, as the grieving grandmother? Tell Mom, I smiled, that I have a whole segment dedicated to her. The night of the gala, the Obsidian Hall was breathtaking. Thousands of white lilies, Nathan's favorite, filled the room. The lighting was dim and reverent. A string quartet played soft, melancholic music. The city's elite were there. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, stood by my side. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Once you do this, there is no going back. It is a nuclear option. They dropped the bomb first, Mr. Henderson. I adjusted my silk dress. I'm just clearing the fallout. At 7 p.m., the limousine arrived. My parents stepped out, looking like royalty. My mother wore a silver gown that probably cost more than my first car. My father was in a tuxedo, waving to people he barely knew. Lindsay waddled in behind them in pink chiffon, Chad trailing her like a lost puppy. They swept into the hall, beaming. My mother immediately began working the room. I watched from the balcony. Oh, it's so tragic. I heard her tell the mayor's wife. But we've been her rock. We told her, honey, we will get through this together. It's been so hard on us, losing our grandbabies. I gripped the railing. Patience. I went down to greet them. Darling, Mom cried, rushing to air kiss my cheek. This setup is gorgeous. Very tasteful. A little dark but expected. I'm glad you came, I said. Is the check presentation later? Dad asked, checking his watch. I have an early tea time tomorrow. After dinner, I promised. Please take your seats. You're right in front. I led them to table 1. It was center stage. The best view in the house. A spotlight seemed to linger near them. They loved it. They waved to friends. They ordered the expensive wine. The dinner service began. I didn't eat. I watched them gorge themselves on filet mignon and lobster, laughing, drinking, basking in the attention of being the VIP mourners. At 9 p.m., the lights dimmed. I walked onto the stage. The room fell silent. Thank you all for coming. I spoke into the microphone. My voice didn't shake. 6 months ago, my world ended. I lost Nathan, Scarlet, and Dylan. A murmur of sympathy went through the crowd. In the aftermath of such tragedy, You learn who your pillars are. You learn what matters. My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin, looking expectantly at the stage. She was ready for her shout-out. Tonight, I want to talk about presents, I continued. About showing up. I clicked a remote. The massive screen behind me lit up. A photo of Scarlet and Dylan appeared. The crowd sighed. On the day of the funeral, I said. The church was overflowing. Scarlet's teacher, Mrs. Gable, is here tonight. Please stand. Mrs. Gable stood up, teary-eyed. Applause. Nathan's colleagues are here. Please stand. More applause. My neighbors who brought me food for weeks when I couldn't cook. Please stand. The room was standing, clapping. My parents and Lindsay stood up too, smiling, waving to the crowd, assuming they were included in the general adoration. Please everyone sit, I said. The room quieted. But not everyone could be there. I said, my voice dropping an octave. Some people had prior commitments. I clicked the remote. The screen changed. It was a screenshot of a calendar invite. Date, February 14th. Event, the funeral. My husband and children were being lowered into the ground at 2 p.m., I narrated. I clicked again. The screen was now filled with a high-resolution Instagram post. It was Lindsay, duck-faced, holding a martini. Caption. Birthday bitch. Hashtag 28 and great hashtag party time. Timestamp. February 14th, 2:15 p.m. The air was sucked out of the room. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. At table 1, Lindsay froze. Her smile vanished. My mother grabbed my father's arm. It's hard to balance grief and celebration, I said, my tone dripping with faux empathy. My mother, Patricia, had a difficult choice. Click. A photo of my mother, laughing with her head thrown back, holding a sparkler, sitting at a table covered in expensive sushi. Timestamp. February 14th, 2:45 p.m. And my father. I continued. Click. A video played. It was from Lindsay's Instagram story. My father was doing a shot of tequila yelling, "Here's to the good life." Timestamp. February 14th, 3:30 p.m. The silence in Obsidian Hall was deafening. It was the silence of hundreds of people realizing they were witnessing a public execution. I blocked them that night. I told the crowd, looking directly at table 1. But I unblocked them recently. They told me they wanted to heal. They told me they wanted to support the family. I looked at my mother. She was pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. They are here tonight because they believe I am distributing the settlement money into a family trust. I signaled the tech crew. The house lights came up full blast, blindingly bright, focused entirely on table 1. I am pleased to announce, I said, my voice booming, that the Scarlet and Dylan Trust has officially been endowed with $12 million. My father started to stand up, looking hopeful despite the photos. And, I continued, the charter of the trust explicitly states that not one single penny will ever go to the people sitting at table 1. Gasps. In fact, I said, pointing at them, I have donated $100,000 in their names to the Coalition Against Narcissistic Abuse. You bitch. Lindsay screamed. It echoed through the silent hall. She stood up, knocking over her chair. You jealous, spiteful bitch. And there it is, I said calmly. The grief. My mother stood up, her face a mask of fury. How dare you? After all we did. We are your parents. No, I said into the mic. You are just the people who chose cake over my dead children. I looked at the security team I had hired. I nodded. 4 large men in black suits approached table 1. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, the lead guard said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. You are trespassing. Please vacate the premises. You can't kick us out, my dad blustered. I know the owner. The foundation owns the venue for the night, I corrected. Get out. The walk of shame was long. The entire city elite, the mayor, the business owners, the patients of my father's practice, watched in stony silence as my family was escorted out. Lindsay was crying, screaming obscenities. My mother tried to hold her head high, but tripped on her gown. My father looked at the floor, knowing his practice was dead. When the doors closed behind them, I looked back at the audience. I was trembling. Sorry for the interruption, I said, tears finally spilling over. Now let's talk about the people who did show up. The fallout was swift and brutal. The video of the gala went viral. Not because I posted it, but because 50 other people did. Hashtag CakeOverKids trended for 3 days. My father's dental practice lost 60% of its patients in the first month. He took early retirement and moved to a condo 2 towns over to escape the glares at the grocery store. Lindsay's influencer career imploded. The internet is cruel, but it hates a child neglector more than anything. Brands dropped her. She had to private her account. Last I heard, she and Chad were filing for divorce, and she was working as a receptionist at a car dealership. My mother tried to sue me for defamation. My lawyer laughed her out of his office. Truth is an absolute defense to libel, Patricia. And we have the timestamps. I never spoke to them again. I didn't keep the $12 million. I kept enough to buy a small cottage by the ocean, Somewhere quiet, where the sound of the waves drowned out the memories of the crash. The rest went to the foundation. We changed laws. We helped families bury their children without going into debt. We put drunk drivers in jail. One afternoon, 3 years later, I was sitting on my porch, watching the tide come in. I was pregnant. I had met a man. A grief counselor who knew the darkness as well as I did. He didn't ask me to move on. He just sat with me in the sadness until it became bearable. My phone rang. It was a blocked number. I knew who it was. My mother called every year on the anniversary of the crash. I looked at the phone. I thought about the candle I lit every morning for Scarlet and Dylan. I thought about the peace I had fought so hard to build. I pressed decline. I rubbed my belly, feeling the small flutter of a new life. We're okay, I whispered to the wind. We're finally okay. And for the first time since the police knocked on my door that terrible night, I believed it.